guys, welcome back to Chasing the Wild. If you're new to the channel, let me just go ahead and say welcome. If you like to stay up to date on all the outdoor hunting and fishing news, or if you just consider yourself an outdoorsman or an outdoorswoman, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay current on all the news. We also cover all the upcoming draw deadlines, so if you're interested in any big game draws, make sure you stay to the end. Without further ado, we'll go into our first news story. So our first story this week is one of my favorite types of stories that we usually cover. It's a new state record, and this one's going to be in South Dakota. It's a new state record largemouth bass, weighing in at 9 pounds and 5 ounces. The fish ended up measuring 23 inches, and its girth was 19 and 7/8 inches. That's a huge bass, and I've never caught anything that big in my life. I'd love to see a bass that big. It was actually caught in Indian Scout Lake on the Rosebud Indian Reservation. I'll go ahead and throw up a picture of it so you guys can just appreciate the size of this fish, but that's an amazing fish. I wish I knew what the guy was fishing it on. I've been trying to catch some spring bass. I've been caught up in turkey hunting, but hopefully I can catch something that's at least half the size of that, because that is an enormous fish. Let me know down in the comments section if you guys have caught any big spring bass this season, and let me know what size they ended up measuring in. Our next news story actually covers Colorado. Colorado will soon enact in June 30th a ban on all hunting contests that cover prairie dogs, ground squirrels, and any predator species. This isn't the first time we've seen a state do this. We've already seen 5 states in the U.S. do this in recent years, those being Arizona in 2019, California in 2014, Massachusetts in 2019, and then New Mexico and Vermont in 2018 and 2019, respectively, banned coyote hunting contests. If you're not up to date on what a hunting contest is, it's just a contest that a landowner will put in place on his property, usually on private property, that's for either most amount of a species killed or the biggest of the size killed. And usually landowners use it to control populations. For example, for prairie dogs, maybe a cattle rancher opens a prairie dog contest because he doesn't want prairie dogs messing up his cattle pastures, and he'll award somebody something for killing the most prairie dogs. Well, that's now going to be banned. That doesn't necessarily mean that hunting of those species in general is banned. It just means that you cannot hold a contest for those species. Regular fur bearers, predators, and prairie dogs and ground squirrels can still be hunted under normal hunting laws. You just cannot participate in any hunting contests. Hope that doesn't affect any of you guys' plans. Happy hunting. Alright, our next news story is going to be a bit of a downer compared to our first 2 news stories. A shed hunter in Wyoming was attacked by a grizzly bear this past Friday on May 1st. There's still not a lot of details on this. It's a pretty new news story. He is in stable condition. He's been moved to a different hospital. He was attacked in Cody, Wyoming on the East Pointer Creek drainage. I actually first found out about this through a local photographer in the area. She runs a page called Mountain Girl Photography. Does amazing photography of not only just bears, but also of bison, sheep, goats. Great stuff. You guys can check out her channel. She's not at all affiliated with this channel. You can find her on Facebook. She actually auctions off a lot of her photography, but amazing photography. But she actually posted that she saw a lot of game wardens and a lot of police going to that area. And sure enough, a few hours later, the news story started rolling in that a man had been attacked by a grizzly bear. So I just thought it was cool that I was able to see that story before it was actually even really developed as a story come from her page. Bear season is actually, ironically, in season right now too. So some people are probably out looking for a bear. Alright, for this last news story, I wasn't sure whether I should actually cover this or not, because I try to stay as apolitical as possible on this channel and not inject any of my own personal views on things. But obviously, this being an outdoors channel, primarily focused on hunting and fishing, you guys can assume that I'm, for the most part, pro-gun. I don't know if you guys have heard yet, but in Canada on May 1st, they just enacted a blanket ban on assault weapons. So the ban actually covers 9 different models of firearm, which spreads across 1,500 different brands of firearm. There's actually a couple provisions in there that actually will affect some hunting models that aren't necessarily semi-automatic. When I first read about this, I assumed it was just going to be semi-automatic weapons of like the AR platform as an example. But there's actually a couple provisions in there that will cover specific hunting calibers. And what I mean by that is there's a provision that covers any weapon that produces a muzzle energy over 10,000 joules. Just to give you guys an idea of what that will cover, it's basically all of your 50 caliber rounds and anything like the 460 Weatherby or the 416 Weatherby Magnum. Those types of rounds, like your bear rounds in Canada, are going to be banned, whether they're in a bolt action, lever action, semi-automatic. It will not matter because they have too high of a muzzle energy, according to this new provision from Canada. We try to stay as apolitical on this channel as possible, but I think it's a little bit ridiculous that they're going to the point where they're making these blanket bans on things that will affect hunting. It's a little too early to tell exactly what's going to come out of this. There is a repeal being pushed right now in Canada. We'll see what happens out of that. But it's going to be interesting, and we're going to try to keep you guys up to date on how that's going, because I know a lot of people use their hunting guides in Canada, and there's a couple of dream hunts I have for sure in Canada that I'd like to go on. Alright guys, as promised, we're going to cover the upcoming draw deadlines. First, we got May 4th, the Nevada all-species deadline. Next, on May 14th, we have the Maine Canadian moose deadline. And finally, on May 15th, Oregon all-species deadlines. Maine and Oregon are still a little bit far out there, but definitely keep an eye on the Nevada one. That one's going to be coming up soon, and make sure you at least get your preference points in out of that one. I always say go at least do the preference points. Preference points are pretty cheap. And after you bank them for a while, you can actually afford to do a pretty good, decent DIY hunt without having to pay abhorrent amounts for a guide, if that's what you're interested in. That's what I'm doing right now, is I'm just banking points. Alright guys, that's going to cover the news for this week. Again, if you're new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe if you like what you're seeing. Give us a like on the video, and welcome to the channel. I'll see you guys next week.